On Sunday, September 21st, 2025, news of significant changes in the MotoGP world shocked motorcycle racing fans. Media reports, including those from motorsport.com and El Periodico, revealed that Liberty Media, the American media company that recently acquired a majority stake in Dorna Sports, planned to change the way World Championship titles were awarded. The goal was to increase commercial appeal and align MotoGP's image with that of Formula One, where the premier class is the main focus, while the lower classes are considered supporting categories. This move directly impacts the way World Championship titles are celebrated, especially for riders like Marc Marquez, who is on the verge of winning his 9th title. This issue arose ahead of the 2025 MotoGP series in Motegi, Japan, where Marc Marquez has a strong chance of securing the World Championship. With a significant points lead over his younger brother Alex Marquez, Marquez only needs 3 points to secure his 9th Grand Prix championship title. This title would equal the legendary Valentino Rossi's record of 9 Grand Prix world titles. However, the momentum of this historic celebration is threatened by a new policy from Liberty Media. The company, along with Dorna, has reportedly asked Marquez to celebrate his victory with a number 7 or 1, instead of the 9 that has historically indicated his total Grand Prix titles. The rationale behind this bizarre request is Liberty Media's strong desire to highlight and refine the image of MotoGP as their primary product. They intend to shift the focus away from total Grand Prix titles, which include the lower classes, and emphasize only titles won in the premier class, MotoGP. According to media reports, Liberty intends to fundamentally change the public and media narrative, so that titles won in the GP 125/Moto3 and GP 250/Moto2 classes will no longer be counted or mentioned in a rider's official statistics. This is an attempt to replicate the successful Formula One model, where F1 is the star, while F2 and F3 serve as support classes or racing schools that receive less attention. This move is seen as a way to water down the narrative for new audiences and attract larger sponsors with a narrower, more defined focus. This decision has enormous consequences, directly changing the way the records and histories of motorcycle racing legends are told. For example, if this policy were implemented, Giacomo Agostini, universally known as the holder of 15 Grand Prix world titles, would be trimmed to just 8 MotoGP world titles. Similarly, Valentino Rossi, who currently has a total of 9 Grand Prix titles, would be corrected to just 7 MotoGP world titles. These changes would radically overhaul the sport's history books, ignoring the achievements made in the classes that have been the backbone of Grand Prix racing since its inception in 1949. This raises questions about the value of the history and traditions that have been built up over decades. In addition to the rider requests, Liberty and Dorna have also instructed broadcasters and official media outlets to prioritize MotoGP coverage, allocating less airtime to Moto2 and Moto3. If Marquez clinches the title at Motegi, coverage will emphasize his celebration as a 7th MotoGP world champion, rather than a 9th Grand Prix world champion. This is part of a broader marketing strategy to establish MotoGP as a standalone and engaging entity, which will hopefully attract more global sponsors and a new audience less familiar with the history of Grand Prix racing. This move demonstrates a sharp focus on creating a more commercially viable product, even if it comes at the expense of ties to the sport's past. This request puts Marc Marquez in a very difficult situation. Throughout his career, he has celebrated each world title by proudly displaying his total. For example, when he won the 2019 MotoGP title, he celebrated with a shirt and banner emblazoned with the number 8, a symbol representing his total of 8 titles at the time. Asking Marquez to abandon his trademark tradition and effectively strip him of his 2 titles in the 125 cubic centimeters and Moto2 classes is a highly controversial request and has the potential to spark deep discontent among the rider and his fan base. It is a clear example of new commercial interests suddenly clashing directly with long-established traditions and heritage. Facing immense pressure from Liberty Media and Dorna, Marquez has reportedly chosen a clever and diplomatic compromise. According to a report from leading Spanish publication El Periodico, rather than comply with the demand to wear the number 7, which would seemingly reduce his total number of titles, he will celebrate his 2025 World Championship title with the number 1. This decision is a brilliant strategic move to avoid unnecessary controversy. By choosing the number 1, Marquez effectively does not bow to the demands of the new management, but he also does not openly challenge their authority by displaying the number 9. He chooses to focus on the fact that he is the championship's number 1 this season, a claim that cannot be disputed or challenged by anyone. This smart move is not the only indication of Marquez's implicit dissatisfaction with management's new policy. Previously, he had also criticized several changes which he considered too commercial and lacking respect for the core values of motor racing. One of the most prominent examples is a new rule requiring all drivers to line up for the national anthem ceremony before the race, with a fine of €2,000 for anyone who is late. These rules, which are very similar to practices in Formula One, are seen by many drivers as an attempt to commercialize every aspect of racing, even the most sacred, and shift focus away from the essence of racing itself. Marquez's decision to wear the number 1 is a subtle yet powerful statement. It's his way of demonstrating that, regardless of how Liberty Media and Dorna want to define his title, he is the true world champion this season, and that's what matters most. This move also allows him to avoid protracted debates with new executives, freeing him to focus on what he does best: racing and securing titles. This attitude reflects the mentality of a champion who chooses to let his achievements speak louder than any contrived narrative. This situation sets an important precedent for the future of MotoGP under Liberty Media's control. It demonstrates that the company will not hesitate to make radical changes for commercial gain, even if it means going against decades of tradition and history. Marquez's response and the potential backlash from fans and other riders will be key indicators of how far Liberty Media can push its agenda without destroying the very essence of motorcycle racing. The question is, will these changes lead MotoGP into a new, more commercially successful era, or will they alienate its loyal fan base, which values its history and tradition? This latest development has sparked heated debate among motorcycle racing fans and experts. Many fear that Liberty Media's move will erode MotoGP's unique identity. They argue that the history of Grand Prix racing, encompassing all classes, is integral to the sport's narrative and appeal. Celebrating only Premier Class titles is seen as ignoring the career journeys of riders, who often begin in the junior classes. On the other hand, others support the change, seeing it as a necessary modernization step for MotoGP to compete with other global racing series like Formula One. They argue that simplifying the narrative and focusing on the Premier Class will make it easier to attract new audiences and major sponsors, ultimately benefiting the entire motorcycle racing ecosystem.